Come, let us explore this dawn's meditation class and group practice that we too could meditate like a Jedi. This morning's lesson is based upon the 6th passage of the Unwaning Victory Banner, a meditation text composed by the great Buddhist reformer Prahevajra, oh, so many centuries ago. Let us together relaxingly recite. Great miracles are not difficult to see. The various powers and attainments subtly understood as the natural state instantly manifest. So there are two types of miracles described in Buddhist literature. The ultimate miracle of simply mastering the Buddha's path, and the conventional miracles of being able to pacify things, increase things, control things, and cast out demons, metaphoric or literal. So here's the irony. We are already wired as a survival instinct to experience aversion to that which is dangerous for ourselves and our species. We're already wired by evolution to feel avarice, desire towards that which is advantageous for our person and our species. We're already wired to, from a survivalist point of view, experience competitiveness, whether it is in verbal coercion or circumstantial coercion. We are each wired for this, whether we want to admit it or not. It's not because of logic, it's simply wiring. In our underbrain, we have two reward cycle or circuits. One is for dopamine, and it rewards competition with short-term pleasure. The other is oxytocin-oriented, and it rewards cooperation with experience of long-term fulfillment. Going up a little bit in our brain, we have, let me just point to an image here, that might make things easier. I think I want to go to page 21. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Okay, so when we go a little bit higher in the brain, we have the amygdala, which is the seat of anxiety and aggression. And forward, we have the anterior cingulate gyrus, which is the seat of empathy or compassion. So we have compassion and cooperation, or we have cruelty and competition. Two different circuits, but these circuits are already there. They're already latent. So regardless of whether we are speaking metaphorically or figuratively, the fantasies we have of being able to fulfill those impulses are based in neurological underpinnings. They're based in our own neural anatomy. One thing you've heard me say often, if you've come to several of these live streams, is that the more we cooperate with both the sympathetic and parasympathetic facets of our autonomic nervous system, and the more we cooperate passively through mindfulness and meditation once every 12 hours or so, the more we do that, the more our choices, utterances, and deeds flow from from love's centered spontaneity, the more we work from flow, the more things will turn out for us, as if by magic. Now, does that mean we'll erect a vision board and chant mantras before it until we get that Lamborghini that we think is our birthright? No. But the more we become men and women defined by mindfulness and meditation and peace and love, the more things we're going to work out in our favor as if by magic. The more our choices, utterances, and deeds will turn out for the greatest good in and of themselves. Not because of effort, not because of stress, not out of greed, not out of aggression, but simply by flowing from peace and love. Having completed our opening lesson, we could, let me just make sure I have completed that lesson, so I'm going to go back to that text. Yes, we have completed that lesson, so now let us shift gears. It is Yoda Monday morning. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi. After approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. By the way, I wish to say good morning to an individual. I hope I pronounced their names correctly. If I don't pronounce it correctly, it is not intentional. Good morning, De Centralias. I apologize. I'm not a good linguist. So, this is the Dzogchen Sende Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I have harnessed my autistic special interests, as well as my ADHD hyperfocus, to spend about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that I could become your personal, nerdy, neurodivergent guide to nirvana. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. For the remainder of this morning's live stream, let's play with the latest iteration of Buddha's mantra meditation. Practice text, or sadhana if you're nasty. So there will be some editing. Let's play with this together. Let us divide this morning's practice into 4 quarters. The first quarter is wisdom's warm-up. Please chant with me. Rather than indulge or controlling tendencies with our follies of active visualization, emotion, magic, and belief, we could just recite these wise words in harmony with our breathing and allow our subconscious to do the heavy lifting. Let us therefore sidestep the rigidity that confuses metaphors for statements literal, and instead relax into the flexibility that savors the chance explaining metaphors as similes. Okay, here we go. Let's chant. All circumstances or lots could be as impermanent and interdependent as if they could blissfully melt into rainbow light, like a telephony absorb into this body or form. There's no need to actively visualize or believe anything. We're just playing with figures of speech to viscerally acquaint ourselves or reacquaint ourselves with the inevitability of change and interdependence. We can silently and mentally divide the recitation of this 6-syllable synopsis between our inhalation and our exhalation. Together. All bodies or forms could be as impermanent and interdependent as if they could blissfully melt into rainbow light. That could delightfully absorb into this interpersonal communication or speech. Together. All interpersonal communication or speech could be as impermanent and interdependent as if it could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into this mind. So you'll notice we keep melting the plural into the singular. This is deliberate. This is our way of using our very childish and petulant tendencies to be self-centered. We're using it to facilitate the selfless experience of that serves as an antidote. That I should say, the selfless experience of impermanence that serves as an antidote to pride, and an interdependence which serves as an antidote to jealousy. After all, we are all in this together. And now, let's chant together. All minds could be as impermanent and interdependent as if they could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into our vast empty void. Like the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although could look tantalizing to the eye, could feel ungraspable to the hand. One moment, it's time for a bit of editing. Please bear with me. I'll try to do this as quickly as possible. Okay. Paste. Let's go over here. Let's hit cut. Let's go back. Let's hit paste. Let's hit cut. And once again, let's hit cut. And let's hit paste. We're going back. Hitting home. Home and back. Thank you for your patience. So, we spoke briefly during the opening lesson about passively cooperating with the sympathetic and parasympathetic aspects of our autonomic nervous system that the ancients refer to as our Buddha nature. Here's the easiest way to do that. As we feel our lungs swell, as we feel our chest swell, silently and mentally we could recite the demonstrative pronoun this. Thus cooperating with the tendency for the central region of our spinal cord to notice or practice mindfulness. Vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. Each time we feel our chest sink as we exhale, silently and mentally we could recite the one-syllable verb ease as we cooperate with the tips, the bottom tip and the top tip of that same spinal cord, to practice the relaxation known as meditation. As we do so, that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, and less defining. So what I'd like to do is remind you that to keep track of our first collection, by resting the great knuckle at the base of our right middle finger upon the tip of our left middle finger, palms up in our lap. As we do this, we can keep track of our bonus set of 12 inhalations. We counted 12 inhalations on our right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist philosophy or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. Now that we've reviewed the act of counting inhalations on our right hand, on our left hand we can count sets of 12 inhalations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sets, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 sets of 12 inhalations each. So our friend, whose name I terribly mispronounce, has asked an excellent question, and I'm going to read that to everybody momentarily. Let's hit button 8. Okay. If all things are empty, sunyata, lacking inherent independent existence, then does emptiness itself have an essence, or is emptiness also empty of emptiness, and if so, what is left that can be said to be? Excellent question. So, quick like a bunny, I'm going to subject you to Jumbotron. Welcome to JumboCam. So, well, this is going to make much more sense if I actually go back over to button 9 and scroll to the left. Sounds like a line from Rocky Horror Picture Show. Sturgeon's Law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks. The majority of humanity is foolish. The majority of humanity has been conditioned to believe that being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel is awesome. The problem with being rigid and fearful is that it makes it very difficult for us to perceive figures of speech. Now you can ask, well then fuck figures of speech. Who needs them anyway? We do. All complex life forms on this planet evolved to think symbolically. First we perceived, then we began recalling past perceptions and anticipating future perceptions. And before we knew it, we had evolved the superstructure, or the what is a sculptor build on? They put their clay on it. Is it called an armitage? But basically, the framework of our brain is built on symbolic thinking. So all peoples using any language will always wind up eventually with figures of speech. It is an inevitability. So when we look at either the history or the fable of the Buddha and his foolish cousin, we see that the Buddha was flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. But his cousin was rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. And consequently, he divided the Sangha. He caused a division between the monks and between the nuns and between the laity and between the patrons. And so he took his half, or his portion, of the patrons and the laity and the nuns and the monks, and started his own order. And because he was just wired for competition and greed, he was able to do this easily. But because he was not wired for true spirituality, his teachings fell on their face, they failed to benefit people, and he was abandoned by his monks, nuns, laity, and patrons. Very bad day for the Buddha's cousin. But the Buddha's cousin serves as an archetype for people who are just quote-unquote political animals. And we find political animals everywhere there's people. In the religious situations, in secular situations, in vocational situations, in romantic situations, in recreational situations, there's always going to be political animals. And these are the people who bite, scratch, and claw their way into positions of power. And when they get there, they do more harm than good, not because they're malicious, but because they're too rigid to understand the teachings. Ironically, the people who are the most flexible and most capable of receiving the teachings are the least interested in wrestling in the mud. And that is politics. So, when the Buddha spoke of emptiness, he was speaking not literally, but figuratively. Let's return to this illustration. Every time we inhale, thanks to our sympathetic aspect of our autonomic nervous system, we are wired to notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. Every time we exhale, thanks to the parasympathetic aspect of our autonomic nervous system, we are wired to physically relax and mentally release to such a degree that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could figuratively feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Now, any good English teacher will remind us that a simile is only as useful as it is relatable. Therefore, we have to ask, what is a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? Simple. How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although could look tantalizing to the eye, could feel non-graspable to the hand? If we were to lay out a picnic blanket on the grass and lay on our backs on the grass, gazing up at the blue sky, we could reach forward with splayed fingers and try to grasp the sky. But when we bring those fingers back to our face, we won't find a trace of blue, because literally the sky is non-graspable to one sitting on or lying upon a picnic blanket on the grass. That is an example, that is a figurative example of what we are wired to experience during each exhalation. So just as we have evolved to breathe in and breathe out several times, many times an hour, every hour of the day, every day we're alive, we are constantly cycling between inhaling and exhaling and noticing and releasing. Our job is not to make certain perceptions go away. Our job is not to push away certain sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, or imaginings. Our job is simply to notice them vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly, and then relax. And we don't have to force this relaxation. All we need to do is passively cooperate with the portion of our central nervous system located in our spinal cord. And you might say, what about the front of the brain? What about our capacity to overfocus and overanalyze? Aren't these noble qualities? No. By definition, overfocusing and overanalyzing have negative side effects. They can exhaust the prefrontal cortex, inducing us to present with symptoms of depression, and they trigger our amygdala, the seat of both anxiety and aggression, whereas cooperating with the tissues of our spinal cord to notice and relax in harmony with our inhalations and our exhalations calms our amygdala and gently stimulates our anterior cingulate gyrus, which functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy, which tames, which uses our dreads and desires as tools to increase our compassion and love. So let's wrap this up in a nice red bow. The term selfless, or no self, or not self, or emptiness, or birthless, or deathless are just figures of speech. When we approach any teaching from a place of rigidity, it's going to... When I was a kid, the first day of summer vacation, me and my sister would put on our bathing suits, go in the backyard, and promptly play with the hose. And I remember quite clearly, that when I would squeeze, when the spigot was turned on and water was flowing through the hose, when I squeezed the hose, it limited the amount of water that could get out of the hose. But when I relaxed my grasp upon the hose, the water could flow freely through it. Similarly, the more our minds and bodies are made rigid with fear and the indulgence of our controlling tendencies and perfectionism, the less we comprehend. Ironically, the more we relax physically and mentally, the more we comprehend, sometimes intellectually, sometimes viscerally. It is ironic, but consistently observable. If you have any additional questions, don't be shy. Please type them in the chat window. Let's continue. So to answer your question more specifically, whatever emptiness we might have conceptualized as we breathe in, let me rephrase this, as we relax into our exhalation, whatever concepts we might have about emptiness we noticed during our inhalation could feel as non-graspable as the infinite azure sky. Now, the reason there's so much confusion is not because people are stupid. It's because there's a difference between proto-Buddhism and institutional Buddhism. Institutional Buddhism is for people who are rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. It lifts them into positions of leadership, and it relies upon their teachings. It also, like a child squeezing a tube of toothpaste and making a terrible mess, it pushes out people who are flexible, loving, rational, laid-back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. It chews them up and poops them out. So it should come as little surprise that institutional Buddhism or institutional Taoism or institutional Christianity or institutional Judaism or institutional whatever religion you want to put in there is not going to be as insightful and dynamic and wonderful as its proto counterpart. in every culture, on every continent, in every populated continent, we're going to find humans. And you will find a minority, regardless of what philosophy or religion they were indoctrinated into. You're going to find a minority who are loving. I'm sorry, and a majority who are not. That has less to do with individual religions or philosophies and more to do with the human condition. Going to energetically shift gear, and the tool we're going to use to do that is the following recitation together. May emulation of the Buddha's example and application of his teachings and cooperation with the students come to all crowns. So the brass statue, oopsie, this is an unfortunate editing opportunity. Please bear with me. Let's go over here. Please hang in there with me. Okay. Okay, so let's go back over here. And quick like a bunny, I shall hunt for the right image. Pictures. Let's go to Buddha. Let's go to Lama. Oh, that'll work. Let's click this right here. Okay, let's go over here. Once again, I apologize for the clusterfuck that is editing during class, but life seems to conspire against the indulgence of my perfectionism. Okay, so here we go. Excuse me. All right. And I'm going to hit wrap text and behind text. Here we go. All right. Fabulous. So, this statue of the Buddha, known either as Gautama or Shakyamuni, represents the meditator. This couple sporting and tantric union reminds us of the teachings. Together. May emulation of the Buddha's example, application of his teachings, and cooperation with his students come to all crowns. Insert pictures device, and let's do the old switcheroo. Okay, so thrice let us divide the silent and mental recitation of the synopsis of that which we just chanted between our inhalation and our exhalation. And now let us continue with the silent and mental recitation of this and ease. As we do so, let us rest the great knuckle at the base of our right index finger, upon the tip of our left index finger, palms up in our lap. Great. So once again, self is... We must not take a literal view of no self. Think of it this way. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, and less defining. When we breathe in, the cycle begins again, and things feel a little bit more stressful, a little bit more permanent, a little bit more defined. And like the pendulum of a grandfather clock ponderously swinging in the hallway at our parents' house or grandparents' house, with each breath we swing between feeling defined and feeling more defined and feeling less defined. For instance, no one makes it through junior high without having a crush. No one makes it through junior high without getting their little heart broke. And in the moment that someone crushes our heart under the heel of our boot, it feels like we will feel this way forever, that we are defined by this sadness. But that's an illusion. And as moments turn into hours, turn into days, turn into weeks, turn into months, turn into years, turn into decades, we wonder why we even fell in love with Terry Fink or Sophie Barron or Tiffany Levine. So we don't have to worry. The people, the miserable, cranky bastards of the world are unable to understand the Buddha's teachings because they're too rigid to understand metaphor. But they're also elitist and competitive. So it's kind of like, if I can't understand it, neither can you. And they just make it just as difficult as possible, convincing themselves and others that you need a PhD or you need to meditate for lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, even though in his discourse on the 4 bases of mindfulness, the Buddha insisted that any bloke could master this path in as little as a week. Before karma ripens, where does it wait? If samsara if samsara is nirvana, why practice at all? When when the flame of consciousness is extinguished at death, who notices the dark? Okay, that's like 3 questions wrapped up. I'll do my best to answer it. I will be brief, and if I don't do a good enough job of answering this before the end of this morning's class, ask it again the next time you come, and I will be happy to do it. So here's something to consider. In Proto-Buddhism, the teachings were simple. There's an 8-fold path. Here's how it works. There are 7 enlightenment factors. Here's how they work. There are 4 bases of enlightenment. Here's how they work. Super simple, easy peasy. After the rise of institutional Buddhism, people started not understanding the teachings and getting crappy results. They felt the need to coerce themselves and others. When we meditate correctly, our amygdala is calmed and our anterior cingulate gyrus is stimulated. The center of empathy and compassion and love is stimulated. However, when bad teachers implore their students to focus and analyze instead of notice and relax, they get crappy results and they experience less love. The late Tukul Tundap insisted that the highest love was the spontaneous and uncontrived fringe benefit of mindfulness and meditation. When we look at the 8-fold path, there is no mention of good or bad karma, but 50% of the 8-fold path pertains to loving kindness, kind intention, kind communication, kind conduct, and kind commerce. Kind. Kindness is the dynamo that generates this kindness, is simply our passive cooperation with our involuntary respiration in a way that helps us to notice and relax in a manner that is spiritually productive. Flowing from this centered spontaneity, kindness becomes an inevitability. Just as a dog will wag its tail ferociously when presented with a bowl of its favorite wet food, we cannot help but be kind and loving. The moment we resort to coercion of ourselves or coercion of others, and then we begin threatening people with eternal punishment or eternal reward, or promising people eternal reward, we take them out of love and kindness, love and compassion and empathy. We push them into fear and greed, which are different parts of the brain. Fear and greed, avarice and aversion versus kindness and compassion. In many religions, many philosophies, we are told that love and fear are antithetical. Not as far as emotions, because emotions come and go, but as far as organizing factors. If we're defined by fear, our life is going to be very, very different than if we're defined by compassion. The seat, we're told in, like for instance, if one reads the Christian New Testament, one stumbles upon a passage in first epistle of John that God is love. One reads in the Gospels that the kingdom of God is within. And then if one has access to the right literature, one learns that the seat of empathy is in our brain, right here, just a few centimeters away from the center of fear, the seat of fear versus the seat of love. How ironic is that? There, there is no need to worry about good karma or bad karma. The more we cooperate with our autonomic nervous system through mindfulness and meditation, the more we cannot help but be loving and kind, and for that kindness to gently guide our choices and utterances and deeds. So the question is not one of rebirth. One of my late teachers, as I get older, they get deader. One of my late teachers used to say, the Pure Land is now or never. Now, that doesn't mean that every member of our government needs to be wise and loving, although I wouldn't mind that. What it means is that how we live our lives, to paraphrase Shakespeare, can make a hell out of a heaven or a heaven out of a hell. When we learn about the Nazi Holocaust visited upon the Jews, we learn that in the concentration camps, in the death camps, there was every type of behavior. Some Jews were wise, some were foolish, some were kind, some were cruel. The ones who were able to survive that were the ones who were wise and kind. It wasn't a question of faith. It wasn't a question of being able to control their circumstance, but to use kindness as a tool to maintain their humanity in an inhumane circumstance. And this is not unique to Jews. This is not unique to people who look just like me. Whenever there's a genocide, we see the same dynamic, whether it's the genocide in the Middle East or the genocide. I have lost track of all the genocides going on right now, whether it's the genocide in Palestine or in other places. There's always going to be some people who maintain their kindness and maintain their peace despite what's going on. They do that not through force of will, but through artfully and skillfully cooperating with their body in the way that I've told you this morning. There are some people who insist that consciousness exists beyond the body, which supports it. There's some people who don't. In the Metta Sutta, the Buddha cautioned against having strong opinions and inferred that there's great freedom in saying, I don't know everything about everything, nor do I have to. So all we need to know is this. As we breathe in, things seem solid. As we breathe out, they don't. As we breathe in, things seem to define us. As we breathe out, they seem to a much lesser and lesser and lesser degree. Most people want to live unless they're in excruciating pain, and they welcome the big nap. If someone is in enough physical pain, they don't care if their consciousness goes away. Many people over many centuries have devised all sorts of metaphysics to answer every conceivable question. But believing or disbelieving in those throws us into the abyss of duality. And it's much easier to say, I don't know. I don't know everything about everything. All I know is that peace and love seem to make life better, and peace and love seem to flow from passively noticing and relaxing. Peace and love are not a question of our fleeting emotions. but the ways in which our brain seems to organize itself. So can we feel fear as we breathe in and find peace as we breathe out? Then you're doing a good job on the path. Can you feel anger as you breathe in and feel drawn towards love or pity as you breathe out? Then you're doing a good job. Last night, I woke with both a nightmare and a bellyache. I would not be surprised if there was a causal effect between the two. And in the nightmare, I was recalling the outrageously cruel behavior I endured at the hands of a religious leader almost 35 years ago. And so I got out of bed and waddled down the hall and sat on the couch and meditated. And I was able to process those memories. It didn't make the memories change, it didn't undo the past, but it helped me to process memories and emotions and intentions. If meditation helps us to process the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, then it is serving us quite well. I would love to go on, but our hour together is over. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's dusk meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, oopsie, may the Force be with you always.